Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Another episode of the New Orleans Football Podcast. We got a great show for you guys today. We're going to run through everything the team needs to do in the offseason to get ready for the 2023 season as if we were in the GM chairs. So some of those things that they got to figure out, what do they do at quarterback, offensive coordinator, a lot of big decisions coming up this offseason. It is going to be fascinating to talk about for the next several months. We start that conversation today. We are coming to you from the Better Call Botto podcast studio, and we are presented by Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. That is an 86 proof blend of 3-year-old wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. It is not for the thin skin. Look for it in your favorite bars, restaurants, and grocery stores. And if you need legal help with any of the following: car wrecks, offshore injuries, 18-wheeler collisions, Maritime and Jones Act, hurricane and storm claims, you better call Botto at 504-323-7777 or 985-303-7777 for your free consultation and case review. BottoLaw.com. And make sure you check out our friends, Firehouse Subs, Veterans Boulevard location. Great food, great people, do a lot of stuff for the community. Let's get into the show. New Orleans Football Podcast. The offseason starts right now for us.
Offseason.
It feels like we've been having these conversations for a while. We buried them. They came back to life. It was kind of like you're watching like a Freddy Krueger movie and he's in the grave, and then like a dog pees on the grave and the hand pops up back through it.
Was that an actual plot?
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't keep up with all of it.
Freddy's not actually dead. Like that's how the season kind of went the whole time. But in the end, Freddy always dies, and you know the teenagers prevail. So
look,
that's kind of
I enjoyed that there was playoff hopes, and
Me too.
And honestly, they were real until Tampa Bay came back and beat Arizona. Practically, they were real almost through week 17, and I enjoyed that because we're covering football games. We're covering a season I wanted to mean something, but I've been looking forward to this because the rhetoric has just been, who to yell at, who to yell at, who to yell at. Now it's like, how do we fix it? And that is the rhetoric that I want to get into.
Yeah, me too. Look, I wish they were playing this weekend. I was praying for the 8th seed. Like I wanted more. Like in the way they kind of got into a little run at the end, like it brought life to the season after there was no life to it for so long. But the fact that that we were framing our conversations like that starting pretty much like 2 months ago, it kind of tells you where the team was actually at and tells you how much
we knew where they were at.
They have so much work to do this offseason. They kind of figured some things out. I think it stops people from getting fired. So I guess let's just start there. We're going to go through a lot of simulations, a lot of conversations. What would we do if we were the GM? How would we handle some of these different things? First one is the coach situation. For me, look, I think that it wasn't good. The coaching wasn't good. It also wasn't bad enough to be fireable. And that's just kind of where it's at right now. And I know a lot of people don't like that. I think they kind of decided 4 weeks into the season that he was going to get fired, and they were banging that drum for so long that it like became shocking on Monday when he wasn't fired, but it wasn't bad enough to be fireable. I think that you let him have another year. He's on the hot seat starting week 1. See if he figures it out. See if he can learn from what he did. You go forward with it. But I wouldn't pull the trigger myself.
I think it's more rare than people realize to fire a coach after 1 year. It happened with 2 coaches this year. It happened with Nathaniel Hackett. And look, maybe the Saints aren't that far off from that. But I mean, that Denver team went all in on Russell Wilson and the offense and an offensive coach and realized that wasn't the right guy for the very specific plan they had. It's also new owners and everything like that. So that was a rare circumstance. And look, I've seen a lot of comments on Twitter that say, if you think DA is the answer, I don't think any of us think DA is a proven answer. We were just talking about what it takes for a coach to get fired after 1 year, and it's rare unless you're the Houston Texans. And that organization's pretty disgusting right now. Like, I mean, hire the guy to a 1 year contract if that's what you're going to do.
Yep.
He can't change your mind. But anyway, so yeah, Dennis Allen is going to be on a huge hot seat starting now. We've said this before. He's going to be on the list of Vegas odds first coach to get fired, coaches on the hot seat, coaches who have to make the playoffs to keep their job, all deserving. So any defense of not firing him after 1 year is not he's great, and you're blind if you don't see it. He obviously has to learn from a lot of mistakes, and a lot of people lump in his failed seasons with the Raiders, and the Saints did not take that into account very strongly when they hired him because they feel like that's kind of a dysfunctional organization that was really dysfunctional at that time. But now you do have, 3.5 seasons of non-winning football, so he really does have to. He does have to have a winning season. Excuses can only last so long. I think there were some legitimate excuses why they underachieved. Injuries, obviously, being one of them, and quarterback issues. They lost Drew Brees. We didn't expect this team to be great. They weren't great with Sean Payton after they lost Drew Brees, but he's going to have to show him something. I mean, there is no question he's going to have a very strong plan. It's his team now. He's going to have to clean up all the things that didn't work, and this has to be the year where he proves why he's in this job.
It means something to me that he figured it out on defense, and the defense got better and better as the season went along.
Which is his specialty.
It means something to me that a lot of the penalties went sideways. Look, here's the thing with where they were at, though. And look, the beginning of the season, there was way too much of that. And I was the guy screaming, accountability, bench somebody. He's responsible for all this. The fumbles are on him. The penalties are on him. And I believe they were. And then they got better as the season went along. You saw a couple later on. The problem with how they play football, though, and when you have a quarterback named Andy Dalton, when you make a mistake, there is no margin. There's no covering up anything. It's all right there because Andy can't bail you out of anything. If you fumble and Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback, you probably forget the fumble by the end of the game because you win the game, and it doesn't feel like the end of the world. If a guy pops his MCL and runs out of bounds a yard early, quarterback is going to save you in some of these other places. Here, it doesn't happen at all. And then it goes back on the coach. Coach decided to start that quarterback, so it is on him.
And he very much decided to start that quarterback and that style of play. He wanted to be the 15-play offensive drive guy. Let's try to win this game 9-6. That's how he chose to play football.
All these are his decisions. They come back on him. But I do think that things progressed in a positive way as the season went along. A lot of the stuff we were looking at him early in the season and screaming about dissipated. So that means something to me. But now you have to go into the offseason. You got to figure out who's going to be your offensive coordinator. If you run it back with this guy, I'm lighting the fire a little bit under the chair already, and I'm going to see if it smolders up and ignites. But you got to figure out what you want to be on offense. You got to figure out who your quarterback's going to be. You got to figure out the identity on that side of the ball. And all of these things are on you. So I think he goes into the season. You give him a chance to see if he can figure it out. And if he doesn't, that you got to part. If you're 1-3, 1-4, 0-4, 0-5, he's got to be gone early in the season. So this isn't saying DA has deserved anything. He's free of blame. It's saying he did a poor job, but I can understand why you give him a little bit of an extended look to figure it out. And the fact is they are doing that. So it doesn't really even matter at this point what anybody's opinion is. This is the reality of the situation. And can he dig himself out? I mean, I think it starts right now. He needs to find that shovel. I think you got to change coordinators. I mean, me personally, I couldn't run it back just like this and do it again. I think he needs to find a way to let go of all of that. And when Sean Payton became a good coach, I think that there's probably an argument to be made that Sean learned how to be a really great coach somewhere around 16. And you saw things start to change a little bit. And he let go of some of the stuff on the defense, and he stopped putting his fingers in there, and he stopped telling Rob Ryan what scheme to run. And he hired people. He hired a DC. He got rid of his friends on the staff. He kind of empowered that side of the ball to do their thing. His side of the ball did its thing. He oversaw all of it, and he became a great football coach. And that's how they had the success later on in the second, third act of his career with the Saints. And DA needs to figure that out now. He needs to figure out, okay, this is the coordinator I want, and I'm going to let him go run it, and I'm going to do my thing over here, and I'm going to oversee all of it, and we'll see how it works out. But what they were doing this year, to me, didn't work. And I think that maybe pushing it aside a little bit, starting over, finding a new identity, hiring somebody that's coming in, and from day one, you're his boss, I think that can make a difference too. So those are all things I would look at very seriously. Maybe elevating Pete into an offensive analyst role. There's maybe some still value there. His value as a game planner and everything, I think is, something that they had in the building for a long time that worked really well. But you need to hire somebody and empower him to run his offense and just trust that vision and kind of leave it alone a little bit, I think.
Well, first of all, your Sean Payton corollary, I think a lot of people would immediately think of what Payton did in 2009. And that's the greatest example of he had to fire a guy who he had worked with for a long time that he was friendly with, Gary Gibbs, and bring in Greg Williams. Now, that might have been the worst thing Sean Payton ever did. He got a Super Bowl out of it. But that's obviously the parallel. Who is the Greg Williams that Dennis Allen can turn to now, because that's the answer no matter what. I think we both have a lot of respect for Pete, and I think he's probably taken too much crap for how stale this offense has gotten and not getting enough credit for how big a part. It wasn't like he wasn't a huge part of all the offensive success they had with Sean Payton. He was right there side by side helping him build this offense from the ground up. So yeah, if there is a role for Pete, or if maybe Dennis micromanaged Pete too much, and part of the answer is, all right, let's go in a different direction. Run the offense how you would run it if I had no input on it, and go get your high flying quarterback and try to throw for 5,000 yards. Maybe we don't know exactly what those conversations are like, but one way or another, they need fresh ideas, fresh approach, something different. This is not, they can't live on this high wire with an offense that has to be perfect and try to get to 20 points. Like that can't be the way anymore. It can't. And they need that for not only the success of the team, but they do need it for fan enthusiasm. I don't think this team is going to make any decisions based on ticket sales, but we've seen enough, to use one of Sean Payton's great expressions. I've seen enough. It needs to be a radical new approach. They can decide who the quarterback is, what that's going to look like, what their offensive line has to look like. Do they need a power running back? Do they need an Alvin style back? But it needs to be completely revitalized. Absolutely. And I do think the easiest, best way to do that is to bring in a new offensive coordinator, or move Pete into another role and say there's a passing game coordinator and there's a run game coordinator. I don't know exactly what it has to look like, but you need a new brain with new ideas in the building. I mean, but what I'm saying is, like, remember LSU, like, they didn't, whatever they brought Joe Brady in, they just got Joe Brady in. I don't care what the title is, like, and I don't know if Joe Brady's the answer. The problem, though, is they're going to be waiting in a long line of people who need a brilliant offensive mind, because first of all, I think about 3 or 4 teams are going to hire brilliant young offensive minds as their head coaches this year. And then after that, we already saw the Patriots are looking for an offensive coordinator. Who else did we just see let their offensive coordinator go and is already out looking for an offensive coordinator? Washington just fired someone. I think there's a chance the Chargers do that. If they don't fire their head coach, they might want to look there. So this is what everyone in the league is looking for. So God bless the Saints in trying to find this person who can bring in the approach.
Yeah, I don't want any coach stuff. Like, if you're bringing,
I know.
If you're bringing someone in like to replace Pete, Pete is being replaced. Like, it needs to be done. There's no more half measures, no more hanging around, no DA behind Rob Ryan because you're afraid to fire Rob Ryan right now, but you actually want DA and you're just kind of giving him a chance to hang him. So none of that stuff. Like, it needs to be a clean, this is what we're doing, this is the path, I'm running my program, this is what I want. Liam Cohen's going to be my OC, like whoever it is. Like, that's what you need to do, and then run it from there. And then that guy should have input on who he wants to coach his wide receivers, who he wants to coach his running backs, his tight ends, his offensive line. Maybe some of those people are the same people, but if it's something else and he feels like this guy can help him install his program, you need to be willing to do all of that. And I think a lot of the guys that we've seen on the staff on offense are excellent at their jobs. I think they do a really good job. They have for a long time. That's not a commentary on them. It's just, if this is the path forward, that's the path you got to take. And I just want to see a decisive decision. I think we probably overblew the co-DC thing a little bit. I think it ultimately ended up working out in the end, but it needs to be.
But Dennis Allen was at the top of that pyramid.
Dennis Allen is a defensive coordinator. Yeah, like, that was the whole thing with all that. Like, it was just like, oh my God,
so that's why I'm saying sometimes titles don't matter. They brought in Jeff Ireland, and he started doing his job for a month before they settled on assistant general manager. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, whatever it takes to bring in a new mind and a new approach. And if you don't want to hurt someone's feelings by giving them calling one guy senior assistant and calling one guy, as long as there is a completely radical new approach that everyone is rallying behind and a clear direction.
And next up, I think quarterback's something they got to figure out too.
I think those two probably go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think quarterback's probably bigger than anything at this point. I mean, all the stuff we talked about, the offense and just how they're off trend and all that. Like, you can fix all that with the right quarterback, and you don't even notice, like, oh, they aren't motioning. Oh, they aren't using play action, even though those things will make your quarterback better, and the Saints don't use them for some reason. But you get the right guy in there, a lot of this stuff can be overcome and paved out and smoothed out. It's a massive thing, though. And I they've shown us what they're going to do with Jameis. Like, it looks like Jameis is out of here. They made that decision. So we're going to talk about it as if it's moving forward in that direction. For me, I think bringing back Andy Dalton as your starter is a disappointment. It's an outcome I don't want to see. I want to see them do something better than that. At some point, I want to see a game won because the quarterback made some plays. And that's not him. He can manage it. He can get you there when everything else is going. And maybe they'll be good enough to win 8-9 games with that formula next year if he were the starter. But I like the idea of at least some upside. And if that lowers the floor a little bit because you're chasing some upside, I'm okay with that too. I just want to see something moving toward a direction of where you could say, well, if this works out as a multi-year solution, if Andy Dalton's your quarterback, you're still year to year, you're paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, and it's just not an answer. So I would like them to do something better. It doesn't have to be significantly better. I would hope it is, but like, just if you're in that field of quarterbacks, aim for someone younger, maybe even just in that same tier, so that maybe, oh, if he does this and he does this, and maybe with this coaching it clicks and it works out. But like with Dalton, it's just there, and that's fine. And if they end up there, I'll talk myself into them winning, like I said, 9 games. But I would like to see something different.
I want Andy Dalton on the field if you know, like, I mean, we saw what they went through the year before when Jameis got hurt, and then they went to Simeon, and then they went to Taysom, and then they went to Ian Book for a week. And like, Andy Dalton was good stability. He reminds me a lot, like I said, of Teddy Bridgewater, but I think we'd feel the same way about them signing Teddy Bridgewater this offseason. We're not looking for the guy who can, you know, if he doesn't turn the ball over, they might be able to win this game 20-16. We're looking for a different approach. That could have been the right approach in some past seasons. It could have been Andy Dalton might have got them to the playoffs a year earlier. I feel like that might have worked when the defense was playing great and they finished 9-8 and they just missed. But I completely agree with you. If he's part of the solution, it needs to be alongside the younger guy that he's just keeping the seat warm for. And I think that would be the ideal solution to this is make it a draft choice or make it a trade for Jordan Love. I'm not saying I'm sold on Jordan Love, but that's the approach I think we both want to see. The first decision they will have to make is probably Derek Carr, because I believe unless everybody agrees to change some dates, Derek Carr has like all his money gets guaranteed like days after the Super Bowl, and they've made it clear they want to trade him. So that's the first discussion they have to have, and then the next deadline becomes March. We could talk. I haven't sold myself on how I feel about Derek Carr. That's probably not. I feel like he's going to cost too much for an unsure thing. But, I mean, these are the discussions they better be in a room having right now is who's running our offense and who's playing quarterback, because those two take precedent over every other decision this team is going to make.
I don't think I'd have a blazing hot take on Derek Carr. Just if you're going to make that move, it better work. And if you trade for him, I'll give it the grace to, okay, we'll see how it works out and see how it goes. And really any of these things that they go aggressive at, you go aggressive at any of these guys and you put significant money or significant picks or both in the case of Carr, which it probably would be a 2 and a 3 and $30-40 million per season. If you do that, it has to be an answer. You can't be wrong on it. And that's kind of where it's going to be at with them on a lot of those things. Look, if they're like in that tier where it's like, bring back Dalton, I'm gonna try Taysom guy. Like get that's a new
fair.
OC, try him out. Fair. Like if you have a new OC, maybe he has a way of utilizing him. That I just don't think that you should just settle for that. Like this Carolina game was brutal. Like that was Pittsburgh was really bad. That was a breaking point for me where I was kind of like, all right, you got to go to James. Like this is enough. This game here too, like it was ugly. This was probably one of the worst.
If that had happened, we said in the after pod, if that had happened at any other point of the season, we would have rang louder alarm bells, more crisis point, like it's time to bench Dalton and try Jameis. It's like all that stuff we would have been screaming to the rooftops if it happened any other time than week 18.
Like if we're slotting like 21 and 22 individual QB game performances, like there's multiple Trevor Siemian games that were above that one. Maybe like 4 Trevor Siemian games that were like, it took like 3 weeks like to kind of be like, okay, well, wait, Trevor's just making plays in the 2 minute, but like Andy couldn't even make plays in the 2 minute in this. So like there was zero redeeming in this game. The miss to Taysom was by far, I think, the biggest miss of the whole entire season. It's just a shocking oversight on that play. It was really bad. But I'm looking at all options, anything you can do. Hopefully they trade Sean and they can draft somebody high. If not, try to do something that's at least a little bit exciting somewhere. Dalton is not, he's just not exciting. And I'm not trying to bash the guy. Like I think he's just perfectly, he's just, if you're hungry and you got a grilled cheese, like you won't be hungry when you're done, but you aren't feeling great about it. You know what I mean? So
grilled cheese is a pretty good comparison. Sometimes I've like really enjoyed a grilled cheese. And we've complimented Dalton sometimes.
Yeah.
Grilled cheese is a good, fair comparison. I like
And then sometimes it's like, it's grilled cheese.
Yeah.
All right. So
wait, no, but the other thing I'll say on the quarterback is like last year they went after Deshaun Watson, which I did not like for a lot of off the field reasons, obviously, but I don't think that's off the table. I mean, I don't think the whole concept of if the Bears are really trading Justin Fields, hey, will you take 2 firsts and 2 seconds? Like I'm okay. I think Dennis Allen, even if they lose some draft picks and even if they lose some current veterans because of the salary cap, I feel like Dennis Allen is going to find a way to field a competitive defense. So if you want to put every chip you have into your answer at quarterback, I think everything should be on the table. You can go all in for Lamar Jackson and I don't know that any of these approaches are going to work, but it's time to think of every possible solution and not just dabble in that.
Well, they showed us last year they are willing to be aggressive, and I don't see why that would go away. And you mentioned that you don't think ticket sales would dictate anything. I think they might.
Yeah.
I mean, these last few games, you're looking at the crowd. There's a financial downfall to this very quickly. Like, I think that stadium could empty out kind of quick if they are not exciting. You can lose games, but if there's like reasons for hope. Yeah. But we saw late in the year, it was just kind of like, this is boring. The football's not great. People are going to stop showing up. The road game, some of these games where you don't have fan bases that travel, Atlanta, Carolina, like there is a loss of money in sight here. You saw it happening. So what happens if it's a whole year of this, if it's 2 years of it? I think that there is some pressure here to field a competitive team so you aren't losing money the next few years trying to fill up that stadium.
I will say this, though. I don't want short-sighted decisions based on trying to patch it together. I think
I don't think they would make...
No, I don't think they would either. But what I'm going to say is I think the negative blueprint is the Indianapolis Colts. They did Phillip Rivers for a year, and we know people who cover that team, I think in hindsight they should have stuck with Phillip Rivers longer, but then they tried Jacoby Brissett, then they tried Carson Wentz, then they tried Matt Ryan. Now they're going to be looking for the 5th year in a row. Like, you can ruin your franchise by going like spending too much capital, spending too much draft capital or whatever on the wrong picks. You go all in if you're convinced on somebody. You don't go all in and be like, maybe Derek Carr, like that's my fear. And you said it. Only do that if you're convinced.
Yeah, I think the difference is, like, I think the Saints have a much better front office than Indianapolis. I mean, they traded for Carson Wentz and thought he was going to be a 7-year answer, Chris Ballard said yesterday, and he's not. Like, he just never was. And he needs to be the guy. Like, I understand Frank coached him and thought he could save him. Ballard needed to be the voice of reason there and be like, hey, bro, this is Carson Wentz. Like, let's calm down here. And this isn't going to be the 7-year answer, but he was all in with it too. Like, that's just, I don't think the Saints would go for Carson Wentz and be like, this is our franchise savior. Like, that's not going to happen. The next big issue though, the first domino to fall really, and it could happen, today's the 11th, by like the 17th, 18th, 19th of next week, Sean Payton trade. There's a handful of teams in on it. If you're trading them, like, let's set the floor before we set the ceiling. What is the absolute floor you're taking for him?
What's the floor I'm taking for him?
I'll start. I think the floor for me would be like if you're talking to Arizona, what do they pick, 3rd?
Yeah.
Are they 3rd? Yeah.
So that would mean in theory they're also 33rd.
Yeah. So if they're like, look, we're not giving up the 3rd. 34th. We're not giving up the 3rd overall pick for this, but we will give you our 2nd this year and our 1st next year and another 2 next year. Like, that would probably be my floor. That would be my floor.
Deal.
That would be my floor. Because if I'm trading for him, I want a 1st now and some change.
Yeah.
If I'm taking it a year from now, that's my floor, and I want even more because I'm waiting a year. So that's not my ceiling, but that would be my floor. Yeah. Like, I'm not.
That's
taking
a lot though. You just said.
If you're telling me to wait a year to get the 1st, you're paying for it.
If Arizona's 2nd this year is the 33rd, 34th pick, that's almost a 1st. Plus their 1st next year, plus their 2nd next year, that gets it done.
That's what I need.
That gets it done.
That would be my floor though. If you're paying me to wait, no waiting at all. Like, I need a 1st and some change. Like, that's it. Like, I think the floor is the ceiling here.
That's not some change.
If you're paying me to wait,
2 seconds is not some change.
It's the same deal as in a trade. Like, when they trade for Alvin and they want to get in the 3rd, they have to give up a 2nd because waiting a year, you get that value back.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the same
deal. I don't think that's a floor. I think that's a done deal for me. If Arizona says you can have our second this year and our first and second next year, I'm giving Sean a ride to Arizona.
Yeah.
My question is, what if they say it's my second this year and my second next year? What if they say it's 3 seconds? Then I have a hard time because I want to do that deal this year. And hopefully someone does offer first. And the fact that Denver's already interested, we think Arizona will probably be interested. We know Carolina will be interested if the Saints were willing to talk to them. Hopefully they don't have to settle for their floor. Hopefully they get their first and change. Yep. Hopefully that's what they get. But
so you come to me, say 3 seconds, I tell you the Honda dealership's down the road.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is,
leaving with the Porsche.
What if the Saints?
You come to a Porsche, you better bring Porsche
for the
money.
floor, though. You asked for the floor. If
I'm not taking that.
The problem is this season there aren't as many teams currently. It'd be nice to see the Chargers get in the mix. It'd be nice to see the Cowboys get in the mix for the Saints' sake. But if you're telling me it comes down to it, last day, deadline is today, take 3 seconds or wait till next year, I think it becomes really hard to wait till next year because I don't want that looming over my franchise all year. I don't want the fans thinking Sean might come back. I don't want DA thinking Sean might come back. And next year, Sean only has 1 year left on his deal. So your leverage, he's been out of football for 2 years. You couldn't pull off a trade for him this year. And now if a team waits 1 more year, they just get him for free. And maybe Sean waits another year. Like I hope they don't have it. I hope it's an obvious decision. But if you're telling me 3 seconds, I think there is value in doing it this year. I think this team needs to turn the page. I hope it's better than 3 seconds. But if one of those seconds is, let's say Denver's really thin on picks. Denver, if they're offering their early third this year plus their first and second next year, I have to consider things.
I'm
not
taking that.
I have to consider.
And if you're calling me for Sean and you're trying to negotiate, it's already in your head that you want Sean. You're going to be the team that blinks at that deadline before me.
Well,
I don't have to. Blink.
But you asked for floor. I know what I'm aiming for. Of course, I
wouldn't take anything that doesn't involve a first round pick. That's my point. My floor is a first round pick somewhere in there. And if you're telling me to wait a year, I need some compensation for it. My absolute floor, I would take probably a first half of the draft, first round pick, and nothing else. That would probably be my floor. If it's pick 16, sure, I'll take that. In that situation, okay, I'm going to get paid now. I need help now. I get 16. I can maybe package some things together and get Denver, up to 10.
So look,
if I
you're
need
saying
to.
First and second. Denver is San Francisco's first, which might be 32nd overall in this pick. Arizona's second is 2 picks after that or whatever. What's your floor from Denver? Do you
Oh, I got to get 20.
That might be the 32nd, 31st, 30th pick in this year's draft. What more do you need from them?
The floor from that? I want their 1 and 2. That's probably my.
They don't
floor.
have a 2 this year, but yeah.
You got to give me something.
Yeah,
you got to give me something. Give me a 2 next year. What are they? They got 3 next year, 3 2s next year, or they got 2/3 this year and then multiple 2s next year, I think. But you got to give me something plus 29. That would be my floor from them.
Well, that's why Arizona has 32.
Yeah,
29 and 32 are right.
But if you're trying to move, say you're trying to package something in the draft, the second round pick has significantly less value. It just does. The first round pick carries more weight, and you can get out from there a little bit easier.
I'm a little worried that this isn't going to be as easy and obvious as we think. I mean, the Chargers would be perfect if they lose in the first round. We know Sean wants to go there. Their first pick is going to be 24th or something like that, plus some change. I think everybody wants to see that.
It's sort of like when you go and you put a bid on a house, and you start picturing yourself in the house, and you're thinking about where you're going to hang the curtains and what color you're going to paint the walls and all that, and then you make your offer and they come back and you say, "This is my max," and they're like, "Well, yeah, you got to go $10,000 higher." Yeah. You're going to sit there for a night. You're going to hang up the phone. You're going to be like, F them, we'll look at other houses. You'll start looking. You're going to look at your wife.
Cut this before Nick buys his next house. He's giving everyone, he's letting people know how he feels.
It's true. You're going to be sitting on the couch with your wife, and one of you is going to be like, damn, I really wanted to be in there. And you're going to find that $10,000, and you're going to be the one to break before them because you still have the house and you're homeless. So what are you going to do? I mean, that's how it's going to go. Someone calls them for Sean and they play hardball. And look, before they even do it, there is the conversation of compensation. I know Schefter said that they hadn't agreed on anything, and that is true, but my understanding of it, and Ian Rappaport reported it as well, there was a global conversation of okay, you want Sean, this is the neighborhood we need to be in. Okay, yeah, we'll figure that out. And, that they continue the conversation from there. I don't see Mickey settling for anything less than a first round pick.
No, and I think they're going to get a first. And I think that's been reported out there enough. I think there's enough competition alone with Denver making it clear that they're willing to get out of the bidding, and I feel like other teams know they're going to have to beat all Denver can offer is, like, let's call it the 30th pick in this draft. We don't know exactly where the 49ers are going to finish, or next year's first round pick plus change. Somebody's going to have to top that. But we probably wasted too much time because you said floor, and I'm just picturing myself. I personally, for content's sake, I want this to happen this year.
Oh, yeah.
I want an injection of fresh young talent. I think that helps them get the quarterback they need, maybe. And so I'm openly rooting for, I'm cheering in the press box. I'm rooting for this deal to get done this year. But I genuinely also think it would really behoove the Saints to get it done this year for all those reasons. Next year, when he only has 1 year left on his deal, I just worry a little bit about that. Now you're the ones who have to take the best offer you can get. And maybe that'll work out for him. Bet on yourself, that kind of thing. But when you said floor, I'm worried that this is a floor market. I'm worried if Denver and Arizona are the best you're going to get, then there is nothing higher than the 30th pick in this year's draft on the table.
See, I like that floor, though, because I think both those teams are desperate. But you have Russell Wilson, and you need him to be
agree,
safe.
But you just said you need the first round. You need the first round pick. The highest first round pick either of those teams has that's probably going to be on the table is 30th.
So a first round and some change. I mean, you gotta throw more into it. But I think Arizona's desperate enough that I wouldn't necessarily think that like a high pick is totally out of the range. Like, they have been bordering on trying to be relevant since Kurt Warner was there, and they haven't been able to figure it out. And they were just there last year, and then the bottom falls out on it. They got a quarterback they just invested millions and millions and millions of dollars in that looks broken. So, okay, you're going to bring in the Eagles OC to fix them? Like, maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. Or you can give this up and your problems are solved. Like, I think they're in a spot where maybe you could wiggle that out of them. And honestly, like, if I was covering Arizona, my talking point right now would be a head coach that can, like, change your whole entire culture is worth more than one individual player.
Yeah.
Always is going to be. Like, if you could trade for that person, you would do it probably 10 out of 10 times. But then every time we talk about, like, something in the form of a draft pick, the value of that draft pick gets so bloated because, they're going to draft, a Bosa with that pick. But, like, probably not. They probably aren't going to get a Bosa with that pick. They already have a quarterback. But, like, when you put a name on the pick, almost every single time, it's like, wait, that's all you get with the 6th pick in the draft or the 3rd pick in the draft or whatever. So when it's in this, like, perfect little egg, it's like, no, I would never give that up. But, like,
I've always thought NFL teams hold on. Clutch their draft pick pearls a little too much. Actually, the Saints have been a team that doesn't. The Rams, another team that doesn't, obviously.
And, well, McVay's dipping because it's so bad there. Man, they got a long runway to go. But
now, look, that team could get in the mix too, the Rams. That's one of the wild card teams. Now, they also have less draft capital to work with. I mean, it really is. If these are the teams we're talking about, Denver, Arizona, Rams, that the 2024 first might really be a part of this.
Look, the conversation here has kind of changed from what we set it out to be. But, like, I will say this. Like, I think if you leave this situation without a first, you kind of lost. I feel like you kind of lost the deal. And you have to get it. Every precedent, like, throughout the whole league, like, Bill Belichick got a first-round pick coming off of bad seasons in Cleveland where he was not even coming from, like, he was a DC at the time. They got multiple picks for that. Parcells, first-round pick, like, that is the precedent for this level of person. You're gonna bring up Arians, but, like, Arians was out and he didn't have Sean's resume.
But in all of those cases, the coach didn't take the year off. So there, in some ways, isn't a precedent for this.
I don't think that matters.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. The Saints have a ton of leverage, but what matters most is the demand. Who are the teams and what are they offering? And so when you said floor, I'm worried about floor because I'm worried about what these teams have. I think Denver being in the mix really helps drive the price up. If you're telling you guys are going to have to top the Walmart family, that I think that really helps the Saints. But I think this is the year to strike. I really do. I think if you wait till next year, you lose a little bit of that leverage.
You do lose some leverage, but my thing here is, okay, like, you dipped on us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You don't want to coach our team.
Yeah.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
And that's how I would play it because he could go back and say, hey, like, get this deal done. I want to be here. And if he's telling them, don't give up too much, well, F you, then just wait.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't get to say anything, especially.
You got to pay me for this guy.
Especially after those reports that came out that he might be interested in here, which were floated for whatever reason by whomever. We don't know for sure. But that probably, the Saints don't need Sean Payton rumors messing with the coach they do have. And so they're probably ready to move on and maybe even in a less cordial way. Second part of this question though is, all right, you're Sean Payton. Which of these jobs are you willing to take?
Oh, I've been saying it for months. Arizona's the one that I would take.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like they have a decent enough core there. They got a quarterback that I know he liked coming out of the draft. Their GM spot's open, so I can take whoever I want. Ryan Pace, Jeff Ireland. I think if you're hiring Sean,
I think it's weird though. They've already started all their GM interviews, and the reports are they're going to hire a GM first, then look at coach.
But if you don't,
that might be a signal that they're not in the Sean Payton market. We haven't heard yet that they've reached out to.
Or if you're not getting him, you still have to run your process to where you're still running it this way. And if you're Bidwell and you want the GM to lead that search, and Sean doesn't take your job or you don't figure it out with him, that's probably the way you want to run it. But I think you start your search that way, and then you talk to him when you're allowed, and then you figure it out. But if I were him, that's the one I would want. I wouldn't want to.
Denver is the only team we know that has already requested an interview.
Apparently,
will you take that one?
It's tougher for me. Apparently, Russell Wilson wants Dan Quinn too, and our guy Bun had a great tweet. I want to read this. I saw it like right when I woke up, and I meant to send it to you. Bun quote tweeted. He said, "I bet he do. Get him a great defense so he can be ass in peace." Poor Russell.
That's pretty good.
But I would rather Arizona than Denver.
No, I know. But what if Denver's the only one offering you the job this year? Does that get you out of the Fox booth? He seems like he really wants to coach. He
likes Russell too. He does like Russell. They were interested in him coming here. I mean, that was something that they were looking at last year.
I know I could talk myself into Denver. I would love to live there.
I like a lot of their pieces.
Yeah.
It's too cold for me personally.
It's not cold year round. Sometimes it's freaking gorgeous in Denver. Plus, he apparently likes to golf. He's going to drive the ball a lot further in Denver. It'll make him feel better about his golf game.
I don't know if he likes to ski, but he likes to be ski adjacent at least. Like I know he's been like around ski places times we've talked to him.
That one's tough. What about the Rams if that job goes open?
No, I'm a no on the Rams, but I could see Sean.
Currently lives in LA.
I could see Sean talking himself into like, oh well, this is like a big job and we'll build this out or whatever. But man, Arizona's the one that I would want if I were him. It just feels like a better situation. It feels like they're a little bit closer.
But if you, I guess I'm going through this. I'm going through this exercise as if you only get one offer this year. Does it pull you out? Because here's the other thing: if I'm Sean, and if I can have any patience, I feel like the Jets are a year away from firing their coach if things don't go well. I think the Chargers are a year away from their firing coach if things don't go well. I think the Cowboys are a year away from firing their coach if things don't go well. And I think all three of those are better jobs, in addition to other ones that we might not know about. So you got to really want to come back to settle for, I think, any of these jobs.
We thought two of the three you just said were going to open this year.
I know.
So, I mean, it's a gamble.
Never know.
It's a big gamble. Yeah. Yeah.
I could talk myself into Denver. I don't know enough about his relationship with their GM, who looks like is staying. But that GM's probably feeling desperate now because he's going to be the next one to go after he was part of giving Russell Wilson that big deal too. So
if you're going to build a structure for Sean, I think you just build a structure for Sean. And if that's moving someone up or moving someone out, like if you're going to commit to him, I think that you're just, okay, this is the path we're taking and we're giving all this up for him. And if he doesn't like your GM does something different or GM gets out, I think. I mean, that's where you're probably at with it. And that's new ownership too in Denver. Yeah. Like they aren't loyal to anybody. I think that's why Hackett got fired, because it was new ownership. Like if it was a different structure, he probably gets a little bit more time to put his program in place and everything. But these people just looked at it and said, hey, this ain't working. We're cutting bait. Maybe that's a good thing for them. But out of all those, yeah, it's Arizona to me. But I could see him saying yes to any of them. I really could.
Yeah, we didn't mention Colts. I think they're out. Carolina hasn't even apparently shown interest. I wonder if he already let them know he's not interested. I don't think he's ever been really impressed with how they run their organization. And is there one more I'm forgetting?
The shine has come off on Indianapolis so bad. Like it went from being like a well-run organization from a distance. Everybody oh, look at how they scout. Look at how they do this, how they do that. And now it's crumbled like so quick.
Houston
you couldn't go there. You couldn't go there. Yeah, Houston.
Houston is the other one.
And they're too dysfunctional for me, man.
They feel,
the people that want like the coach fired every single year, like you should not in the rip it down and rebuild and all stuff. Like you should not be in a race to become the Houston Texans.
Yeah. The only thing is they gave Bill O'Brien forever and gave him all the power he wanted and just kind of got out of his way. And that was kind of a weird choice with Bill O'Brien. Maybe Sean could feel like, I could be in charge of everything in Houston and have the 2nd and the 12th pick in the draft. But I feel like that is set up for a coach who believes in themselves to have success. But if you are Sean Payton and you can be picky, that is probably an organization you want to steer clear of.
You want Houston involved if you're the Saints, because that's easy. You get the second of their first round picks, I think, very easily, plus some change, and they don't feel like they're giving up too much. I like Arizona too, though, because they have the quarterback, and they might be more likely to give up the pick because they aren't so far off.
Arizona, you might get their early second this year and their first next year. And I would take that. I would shake hands with them on that one.
But do you think Mike T's gone? You take the setup on that deal?
Michael Thomas?
Yeah.
No, that's not even a question. Yes, he's gone. I mean,
unless something changes, he got cut on paper. Yeah.
He did. Yeah. I mean, I guess that leaves open the tiny avenue for them to keep renegotiating with him, but then don't do it. They didn't have to hurry up and do this. Yeah. He's gone.
Yeah. It buys you I guess it buys you days is really all they got themselves with it. They bought themselves 72 hours with that if they're going to keep renegotiating. But yeah, there's no way.
And just for people who don't understand the salary cap, because the Saints are going to do this with 15 other people before March 15th. They're going to restructure this guy. They're going to restructure this guy. They're going to restructure this guy. And all of them are almost formulaic. Like, it's going to happen with Eric McCoy, Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk. It's built into their deals. Then there's going to be like one or two that's like a Bradley Roby, where he actually took a pay cut last year. They do that with guys every once in a while. Hey, I wonder if Andrus Pete's a candidate for that. Look, if you're going to stay, it's going to have to be half the salary that you're scheduled to make this year. But what happened in Michael Thomas's case is very rare. It's only rare universally, but we've seen it 3 times now. We saw it with Drew Brees before he retired. He agreed to do that. We saw it with Malcolm Jenkins before he retired. He agreed to do that. And doing this with Michael Thomas, what they did was you have the ability with a player to label his cut as a June 2nd cut, but his salary stays on your books until June 2nd if you do that. They couldn't afford to keep his $15 million salary on the books till June 2nd, so now his salary is $1 million, which they can afford to keep on the books till June 2nd. It's like plain as day that they've agreed to let him move on.
Yeah, and that's going to be a massive need now too. They need that type of player on their team, but I just don't know that you can commit that kind of money to somebody that you don't know is going to be playing. So if you're spending $15 million next year, I think you got to spend that $15 million, hopefully way less, but that money on someone that you know is going to be on the field for 16, 17 games. We had a bunch of other things I wanted to get to, but I got the flu here. I'm fighting through it. I feel like my voice is starting to cut out a little bit. We're going to leave the rest of it on the agenda, I think, for next week. We'll be back end of the week with a members-only pod. We appreciate you guys' support. Thanks for listening, and we're out of here.